this is Tiger. Good evening, my friends. Welcome to my stream. AJ's already asleep today, so there will be no good evening from her. So all you get is a good evening from me. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Trends in World. And before we start, let me give you the disclaimer that I got my DLCs for these games. But those games for free from DTG, thankfully for being an ambassador. But this is what we get as ambassadors and nothing else, and nobody will interfere with what we think and say about the quality and the content of the game. Today we're unboxing another little itsy bitsy DLC, the Great British Railway Class 802 bimodal multiple unit DLC that gives us new gameplay opportunities for the 802 A train, together with a DLC that is actually sending us a bit in the future that does not exist in real life except from prototypes and east for the Re-Nationalised Great British Railways that is supposed to take over not only all the train operating company leases, but also what Network Rail is doing at the moment, more or less, to end the chapter of privatization as it was since the 90s in the United Kingdom and go back to a nationalized, centralized organization of train service. Will be very interesting to see where it gets us. I wanted to play one or two scenarios and then you can judge for yourself whether you want to invest some pocket money into this not too pricey but also not too large DLC. What you get is gameplay opportunities, timetable services and scenarios, together with two rail journey rail journey packages for 2 lines. The East Coast Main Line, Peterborough to Doncaster, is already a bit of a dated line. Used to be a core line for, I actually don't know what it was, I think 4, right? Trains 4, and the Riviera line is still a much beloved line, especially for me, in core line for Trains in World 6. East Coast Main Line, Peterborough, you find a set of scenarios. Timetable runs Paint It Blue. Regeneration is the introduction for this train, and then you can flying the flag. This is when you change your Asuma 801 train to 802 A train in the new livery, and obviously there are some line runs for that. I'm gonna play this here. Can't park there, sir, or I put you in front of it. That does not necessarily belong there. Anyway, I think this is what we're doing. On the Riviera line, you find something similar. Great Riviera Railways, and there is no introduction. There is a Riviera Rendezvous scenario. Some timetable runs in the Sea of Blue. You can find a snow stopper where you can plow through the snow with your 802 train. It's split because in the East Coast Main Line you run on electric power from the overhead catenary, 25k volts, and on the Riviera line you run on the diesels, and the 802 is contrary to the 801, a fully blown bimodal multiple units, so you can switch to a set of diesel motors that are, or diesel engines that are mounted underneath your train and can pick up quite some speed, unlike with the Asuma, the 801, that only has one diesel power pack for the last mile to get the train off the road in case anything goes wrong with the overhead catenary. I like the 802 train that came with the Trains and World 6 core route Riviera line. It has a rudimentary installation for the British Rail automatic train protection system, as we have discussed in a video before. And in general, it is a nice train. However, you can't park here. Scenario is to be found here. Last item in the journey for the East Coast Main Line. So let's start with it. Let's start with the electrified stuff. And let's see where it gets us. I haven't played the scenario so far. So it will be new for me as well. First. Can't park there, sir. Maybe I can adjust this before we start, that it actually says the right thing in my service marker. In case somebody wants to replay it and can't find it. If I just see something that is close but not exact. Okay. And now we go. Starting in Peterborough. Good evening and welcome to Peterborough. The service is bound for Doncaster, stopping at all intermediate stations, which are free. Let's turn on all the safety systems, even if not all of them are implemented. Due to an earlier incident, the level crossing south of Retford has been taken under manual control by P-way workers. You will need to stop before the crossing before being manually waved through. Alright.
TPWS and AWS operational.
Set the headlights. And unlock the door. And here we see for the first time our Great British Railways livery. There is some discussion going on whether this is great work or not, whether the textures are blurry, whether it looks great or not. At any rate, this is what it is supposed to look in a couple of months. And now those trains will be running around the UK. Got a green light. You need some wipers. It will be limited to 25. You can see it here until we're out on the open track. Brake hold, especially important if you're starting. On diesel power, so that your train does not roll backwards. You can build up some momentum. And another one of those beautiful trains is coming from the opposite direction, passing us. How many cars do we have? 9. Train comes in 2 variants, 9 cars and 5 cars. The 5-car train is often running in a double traction setup, so that you have 10 cars. And this is obviously important to know when you are able to accelerate after passing a speed changing point. should be good now. Now that we're approaching this 125 mile sign, to accelerate beyond the 25. And we're supposed to stop at Grantham. That means we're going first through that part of the track that once was designed to be a high-speed section with speeds up to 140 miles per hour, so that we get flashing greens. I always thought this route actually shows us nicely, with those flashing greens, how some flashing animations work properly and how some animations for the flashing signals don't work properly and look weird. What is annoying things in the Dutch DLC, for example. Because you can't really see the knippern. Sometimes the light doesn't really go off in the face when it should go off while flashing. And that somehow ruins the effect a bit. Now we're getting a yellow anyway. Now it changed just before we hit the magnet. Now we actually were a bit too fast and ran into the double yellow, so that we got the AWS magnet and the sunflower, but the signal switched back to green. So I just have the train coast a bit so that we don't go too deep into the yellows. It will be interesting to see how they implemented the fact that we have to stop at the level crossing before Retford. But before we get there, we still have to do the stops at Grantham and at Newark. The signals tend to be green again. I can pick up some more power, maybe. Whatever train was slowing us down went out of the way, maybe on the relief lines to the left and to the right of our high-speed tracks. And now we're getting the flashing greens. We can see this is one of the cases where the green stays on even though the signal is flashing. Where here it goes off but somehow out of phase. Went back to steady green, so more coasting, because I don't wanna run into yellows. Another one of our Great British Railway liveried trains, and we're running into the yellows. Actually did not change, so that we have to slow down. But the next one is flashing green, and it is actually one that flashes properly. So this is how I imagine the flashing animation to work. With the lamp off and on. And with some other signals, either the lamp does not go off at all, or it is out of phase. Like here, it does not go off at all. Works more or less here, but on other signals, especially the Dutch ones, for example, it does not work at all. Good signal again. Well, even that one is a bit out of phase with turning it on and off. Same here again. No flashing. So we can coast. Flashing, we can go back to speed. That was a perfect flashing signal again. That one is out of phase. So is this, as it seems. No, this does not even go off. Same here again. Before we get into the tunnel, we will have a limit 115 that we have to adhere to. You can see that coming when the two slow lines on the far left and the far right are converging in. then soon enough we will have to slow down to 115. Still going around a bend to the left. Suspension kicking us in a bit of a hopping motion here. Let's see if we lose that if we slow down the train at the end of this straight. So, I think we are getting closer to the point where the lines are coming in, where we have to slow down to the 115. Here we are. Immediately at the entrance to the tunnel, we will get the 115 sign if I'm not mistaken. Here we are. Actually, we can most probably just wait until we lose the slow tracks on the sides and then slow down those 10 kilometers are easily lost, and then it's actually more or less not miss the point for slowing down for Grantham, because we're coming down the hill with a lot of momentum, and if we start braking too late, then we will probably overshoot badly. There's also a further reduction to 100 at Grantham station. But this is normally not a problem when we have to stop anyway. And after being out of the tunnel, it is always a surprise how fast we are at Grantham. Now we're not getting any flashing greens anymore. We have actually a lot of time to get there. We'll probably be early. So we can just get into the minimum brakes and slow down early. the 25 is only to the left. But we're not going in any loop. Stopping at platform 2, that means we're stopping on the main line. Here's the limit to 100. And we're still super early. Interesting. Where my camera ended up. Grantham, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still trying to waste away a bit of time because we will get points subtracted for being early. Well, anyway, so we're a bit early.
Surfaces may be slippery.
Grantham station has this layout where you have 2 platforms at the main line, 1 and 2. A bay platform number 3 and a 4th platform in a loop line that you sometimes go to when you're coming from Peterborough and you're already branched off here. And I have to slow down to 25 and then sometimes even 15 if they send you here. And then you end up at platform number 4 in the loop line. And you have to sneak out again here. This one is typically not a problem. From the yard there is not so much traffic from the sidings. And then you gotta make your way with the 25 back to the main line. Here. Because you can't branch off here. The trains branching off would probably stop at platform 4 if they don't go into the A platform anyway. This allows me to readjust my external camera 3. It got kicked somewhere by the station buildings. We have a proceed aspect, as we can see from the banner repeater up there. That means we can close our doors. And prepare for the next leg to Newark. Always nice with a hold brake. The Sumo model does not have this, as far as I know. In the game, build some momentum, release. And push the train. If you want my opinion, I find the liveries nice. Train looks good. I've always been a fan of the 802A train, and I love driving it on the Riviera line and also here. I would really appreciate for this thing to work, the British Rail automatic train protection. But unfortunately it doesn't really. Now we're picking up speed to get to Newark. Northgate. Turn off the cab lights to mellow the appearance of our dashboard a bit. We're still in the 115 limit, I think. That still has to increase as we get further away from Grantham. Maybe I'm mistaken here. My route knowledge isn't that great on this route here. Yeah, but since we're going through a tunnel, it's probably past the tunnel that we can go faster. You can decide for yourself whether it is nicer with or without the cab lights on. Another great British Railway liveried train, and here we are back in the 125. And we can make some speed. So especially in the dying light here of the setting sun, I think this livery looks beautiful. The darker blue on the nose looks almost black. What is back is the yellow nose that we lost on the Avanti Evero that was released a couple of months ago. But to be honest, it actually does its trick to make the train more apparent when it is coming towards you. So if I'm not mistaken, we are not getting any speed restriction for Newark when we're coming from this direction. Beyond Newark, then there is this weird track crossing. Well, we have a limit to 100. At least there is no... Is there? If there is, we will see. We should get the Morpeth board. Very dramatic sunset here. Now we're getting yellows. Now switch to green early enough. Platform 1 at Newark. Should be on the main line too. Don't think there is a loop line on the down line. But we will see. Passing area here. turn signals just turning from double yellow to green. Rain getting worse all of a sudden, and now we're running into the double yellow. So we slow down that we don't hit the single yellow with more than 70-ish. Now I can see the next one is double yellow. Going back to green, so we're probably good to accelerate again, but on the other hand it's only 2.6 miles until we get to Newark, so there is not really a big point in accelerating more. And it's not that we are really late. And on the next leg we should get the problematic level crossing. Let's see what the scenario tells us to do at this point. Maybe we get a message from the signaler. Poor people have to stand there with a flag and get the trains over the level crossing manually in all that rain. Yep, no loop on the left. All that we could do is go to the right. Newark Northgate with more rain than Grantham. Significantly more rain. So the rolling sound of this train is something that almost always soothes me a lot. All the way to the end of the platform to our marker, where it gives us a stopping point for all the Class 800 trains, including that one. And we're a bit early so that we get points subtracted.
Weather, please take extra care whilst on the station. Surfaces may be slippery.
Yes, the surfaces may be slippery, especially because of the rain. Does not face those people. He does not even wear his hard head. Don't use your umbrellas as a weapon. And those guys are great. They have the umbrella closed when they're in the rain, and they open it when they are going under the roof. Akkura. Moin, just lurking today. Was planning JGA. Would love to be more invested due to unbox British EMU. Yes. What is it that you're planning? A GJA? JGA? I'm afraid this is an acronym that I am not familiar with. A Junggesellenabschied. Ah, now I think I got on it. That is a stag party that you're planning. Well, that definitely takes some careful planning. Yes, it's a bit slow on the chat tonight. It's actually the first message. AJ is asleep. CD Radar is probably still working or doing something with a wolf. Alright, we can't see whether we have a signal or not. I actually hoped I could discuss a new idea about 4-up challenges on my channel with you guys, but I think I have to wait for that until people are back in the chat. Whole break, and then let's see what the scenario tells us. The failed level crossing is up ahead. Be ready to stop before it and wait for an on-site track worker to grant you permission to pass. Alright. We are totally ready to do this. So, leaving Newark in this direction means we have to prepare for the 100 limit at this weird track crossing that we're up ahead. Yes, the green light is hidden by a post, but it is nevertheless green. When starting here, it's typically not a problem, but when running through the station, now we need to slow down. Here's one of the rare SPAT indicators. Here is the crossing, actually crossing a rail track on level ground. And here would be a SPAT indicator in real life. Now we can accelerate to 125. Let's see if the signals actually slow us down. We have our counter on the top left, so we actually know where we have to stop. But up until the level crossing we can go normally on line speed. Before we get to Retford there will be a limit to 115 or 110 anyway, but the level crossing is maybe earlier. Those level crossings here work perfectly. The failed one is still 7 miles ahead. Neutral section, unfortunately, are still not animated or implemented in this DLC. Can't forget it was a fancy word 4-core route, if I am not mistaken. Here would have been the neutral section. Yellows. Yellows. Now we have to slow down. Green again. Can pick up speed. Passing area. Yellows. I just have to train coast before I run into yellows again. And we're getting closer to the level crossing anyway. Great British Railway, the Great British Rain. Looks like the signals are actually slowing us down. Single yellow. Maybe the level crossing is actually protected by a signal. Then they would have to wave us through the red signal. So, now we're getting careful because we don't know where actually the level crossing people are. And where we are supposed to stop. And that it is at the red signal itself. There is a red signal up ahead. So, how close do they want us to get to the signal? That close! Wait for a moment. So, we're standing at the signal. Service 1 Delta 28. You have authority to proceed over the crossing when the signals allow. Proceed is restricted speed of 10 miles per hour. What's the end? Until the rear of the train is clear of the crossing. Aha, actually the train, the rear end of the train needs to be across. Signal is actually set. That means should have put our DRA probably. Missed the Akura points for that. We don't need to use that because the signal is not red. Don't we need to honk when we do this? See how nicely people have secured the level crossing. Let's have a short look around in the photo mode. So this guy is actually waving. Oops. Is that a nice picture? Beautiful. Cars are waiting and we are going across the field. Level crossing. Here's probably the car that they towed off. Yeah, they were discussing with the guy who tried to run the level crossing. Here's the van. They will take him away after the arrest. Nah, probably not. But this is the van that those orange high visibility people came in. So, kudos for this scenery and storytelling. It's nice. I like it. So, now we have to crawl ahead until the end of the train. The rear of the train has made it across. He's still waving. Turning around. Even though we can't see him anymore. And now we are good, and the scenario is helping us with this. You are clear of the crossing and may now proceed at line speed. So they made it easy for us. They told us in the scenario and on the radio, and we can pick up speed again to get to Retford. Obviously we're a bit delayed because of all that, but that can't be helped. We're still in the 125 mile section and we'll have to slow down to 115 before we get closer to Retford. But this is a reduction that we get a smorgasbord for, so it should not be a problem. Yeah, the blue lorries typically tell you that the speed restriction is close. At least they tell me. In case we miss the smorgasbord. Well, there is probably no big point in accelerating beyond the 115 because soon enough we will have to slow down anyway. The headlights don't really pick out the signs. So it's a bit of a guessing game. I think after the bend when we're in the straight, then we should soon get the moped for the 115. It was hard to see on the flyby. I just stay below the 115, then we should be good. Here's the 115, and only in the last moment it gets picked out by the headlights. Retford 2. Probably also on the main line. So we don't need to go into a loop. Going from Doncaster to Peterborough, so the other way around. You typically go into a loop line at Retford. It requires you to slow down to 40. Now we're going into a loop. Since we are getting flashing yellows, it is most probable that we're going into a loop. Single flashing, so the next one should be a single yellow. This is what we're preparing for. So probably go across a switch. And we can see the feather already. I don't have enough route knowledge to know how fast we can be. At least we're not going immediately across the switch. There's still a bit to go. It's 40, so now we can go 40. By not going into a loop. Ah, yeah, of course. Retford is a station that does not have platforms on the through lines, but only loops. Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually. That requires you to go across the switches every time. Stop here. I always find it funny that the stopping position here is on the switch that is coming from the left here. It's typically not something that you want to have that train sitting on the switch. But I guess this is not a big problem here, because there is not much traffic coming from this side anyway. Here is a closed gate. It's just a little siding that can be switched in here. Looks good, I think. Mist and the rain. Well, obviously we're late. Doesn't help.
Welcome aboard this Great British Railways service to Doncaster. We'll be calling at Doncaster only.
Yeah. Announcements are not super exact.
The next station is Doncaster.
Well, that was a surprise. So, going out with 40 again. Obviously, I have to leave with the full train. 9 cars, or 10 cars even. What do we have? 9. So we have a stroke 1 unit. And now we can go on the last leg to Doncaster. There should be one more speed limit in between. I don't remember any specific marker for it, so I guess there will be just a moped board. Thunderstorm. And how nice the level crossings are working. Vigilance. Yellows. Just switched between magnet and signal. What do we do as a compromise? We just coast and see what the next signal will allow us to do. Next one is green, and we should actually accelerate since we are late. passing area. There was the moped, almost unrecognizable unless you know that he's supposed to come. And here was the limit to 110, not 15. I had a feeling. So, good ticks of speeding. It's for this bridge. Now we have to slow down for this combination of bends. And for the last bit we should be allowed back to 125 miles as soon as we are out of the bend. Yeah, it was. And the last leg to Doncaster starts with yellows, switching between magnet and signal. For the slowdown for Doncaster, typically the signals slow us down anyway. With an approach control signal at the end with countdown boards that in the end allow us to go 25 and not faster. there's that lake. That means we're getting signal soon. Double yellow. At the yard. At the yard there's also a drop to whatever, 180, 70. Since we're approaching a single yellow, we don't want to be faster than 70. At the moment we can't see a single yellow anyway because everything is red, but those are not for us. Here was the limit, just flashed into view. There's our single yellow. And the next one will be our approach control signal. That will just clear from red to yellow with a feather when we're close enough. And typically we get countdown boards for it. Well, typically, if I remember correctly, those countdown boards are there, or they are not there. Beyond the bridge, we should get the countdown boards and then we can judge how slow we can go. There is also a TPWS overspeed sensor loop. Here's the first countdown board. Here's the second. Here's the magnet. Here's our red signal. Here's the last countdown board. So do we actually have to stop, or will you let us in? It lets us in and sends us to position 2. That is all the way to the left. I have no idea how far it will drop, speed limit wise. Prepare for 15. I think it's 25 and then 15 for the next. Here's the 15. No, we don't go in this way. Maybe it's 25 all the way. Not going into the bay, so it's probably 25. But this does not change too much. A lot of red signals ahead. There's still to go. That one sitting here is not ours. Ours is the one in the gantry, and here is our stop marker. They still want to go us a bit further on.
This is Doncaster.
This is Doncaster, yes. That's what we expected it to be.
British Railways service to Doncaster.
Well, yeah. So, if you want to go to Doncaster, this is your chance to get off the train. Because the scenario ends here. And we're done. So, don't know about you guys, but I find this a very enjoyable scenario. The atmosphere works, starting in the dying sunlight and then arriving at night with the rain. This is the final stop for this service. Shut down the train and we'll see how you did today. Alright, then we shut down. Tail. Wipers. They never shut down the wipers for whatever reason. Turn off the light. Oh, that light was already turned off. Yes, except for our 2 ticks where I only slowed down to 115 instead of 110 between Retford and Doncaster. It went well. Guys, it was a bit of a slow stream today, chat-wise. I hope next time we can chat a bit more again and then discuss my idea of having 4 up challenges on my stream. For tonight, I think I will call it a day. This is the unboxing of the Great British Railways. Well, obviously not of the whole Great British Railways, but of the livery that we have in Trains in World 6 now. That in future is supposed to race the tracks in the United Kingdom. Hope you enjoyed it anyway. Video will be up on YouTube in a couple of days, and I will be back most probably next Sunday night at 1800 UTC. You have the greatest of time. See you soon. Bye bye.